All right. We have Ken Richardson, a voting member.
Good evening.
William Rhodes, a voting member. And on my far left, we have Ed Casuli, a voting member.
Good evening.
And Pete McGannis is our solicitor for tonight. The first thing on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Ken, would you help us with that?
Please rise and repeat with me. Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. And I neglected to say that my name is Ed McGargy. I'm the vice chairman. Our chairman, Bob Kane, could not be with us tonight, or may come in later. Okay, we have three things on the continued cases. The first thing, I'd like to take them out of order just a little bit, where we have a decision for Z 18-31, Terrador Penn LLC, equitable owners of 217 Walnut Hill Lane. And I skipped a few things here. Let me go back, I'm sorry. We did not approve the minutes yet.
Mr. Chair. The minutes from the meeting of, November 1st, 2018, for the zoning hearing board have been distributed, and having heard no additions, deletions, or changes, move to approve.
We have a second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it. The other thing is a little bit of business we have is for scheduling of the reorganization meeting. And there's been a proposal on the table recommended to us by the township that we have it on January 9th, 2019. Do I have a motion to approve that reorganization meeting date?
So moved.
It's been moved, seconded.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The ayes have it.
And that's at 7 o'clock?
That's probably a good idea. We'll make it usually at 7 o'clock because then we'll have cases afterwards.
The reorganization will be 7 and the regular meeting 7:45?
Yeah, we'll approve the meeting times and stuff at the reorganization meeting, but the meeting's usually held at 7 o'clock. Very good point, Mr. Rhodes. Okay, now, since I aired the first time, we'll go back here now to Z 18-31, Terrador Penn LLC, equitable owners of 217 Walnut Hill Lane in Haverford, PA. Mr. Rhodes, have you looked at that?
Yes, I would vote to grant the variance from the provisions of 182-207C.6 and 182-713.b, subject to the following conditions. The first being that the exterior wall within the setback is not relocated or renovated during the project, and that the project is completed within 1 year in accordance with notes of testimony.
Okay. Mr. Richardson.
I concur.
Mr. Casuli.
I agree.
And I agree as well. The next case we have is Z 18-17, Denise and Anne Marie Friel, owners of 155 Coopertown Road, Haverford, PA. And I've been advised by the solicitor that they have asked for a continuance to February 7th. Does the board have any opinion on that?
I would just ask the solicitor to confirm that the timeframes are fine based on their waivers. I believe they've waived time constraints.
Through February 7th, it's fine.
Yeah, I think we got to watch this, that it doesn't continue forever because the fence is already up, and this is sort of a compliance issue as well. So hopefully they will not have to continue it past then. Mr. Richardson, is that okay with you?
Yes, I agree.
And Mr. Casuli?
I agree.
I agree as well. Okay, that concludes the easy cases. Now we'll go to Z 18-29, the School District of Haverford Township, owners of the Linwood School, 1440 Lawrence Road, Haverford Town, PA, DC Folio 2201-008280, and they had additional exhibits to present to us and information.
That's correct. Andy Freemuth from Whistle Pearlstein here again for the school district. Would it be possible just to go off the record for a moment, just to talk about a question I have with regard to the order that you're hearing the cases, just for a moment?
We would like to go off the record.
I guess what I'd like to do is just mark as an exhibit for the record the packet of materials as one exhibit that was submitted in response to the request of the board at the last meeting. And then I can very briefly have Tom Hanna from Gilmore and Associates just identify the exhibit and then run through the impervious coverage calculations on the site in their temporary condition. And then I have Ryan Orr from KCBA Architects just to identify the renderings, and then the board can go ahead and ask any follow-up questions that they may have, if that's okay.
Were these witnesses sworn in at the last hearing?
Mr. Hanna was, and Mr. Orr will need to be sworn in.
Okay. You're going with Mr. Hanna first, right?
Sure. So at this time, I'll just mark, I think we're up to Exhibit A6, the packet of documents which was submitted to Kelly Kirk at the township under letter dated November 29, 2018. I'll just hand up a copy. Record. And Tom, come on up. The A6 I just marked, those are the documents that you submitted to the township, is that correct?
Yes.
Okay, can you just, run through just what was submitted, and then just discuss in a little more detail the impervious coverage calculations, which are an attachment to your letter?
Certainly. So at the request of the zoning hearing board last meeting, we said we would submit supplemental plans, which included the record plan, the grading plan, erosion sediment control plan, of which there are 3 sheets, landscape plan. There's an architectural building elevation in that package, as well as a rendering package and the supplemental impervious calculations that are attached to the letter.
And then can you just run through those calculations again?
Sure. And I'll start by saying there's these calculations are different than what we explained at the last meeting, because if you recall, we were in the process of making revisions to our land development submission based on the township engineer's comments and some other comments with the school district. In those discussions, we decided to include building an access road down to the back of the site to aid in the temporary, to aid in construction deliveries. Let me just flip to. Okay, you can see on sheet 15, which is our first stage of our erosion sediment control plan. On the western side, the left side of your plan, you'll see an access road being constructed down to the lower level of the site. With that, that increased our during construction impervious surface. That access road will remain after the project's done and serve as the delivery route down to the delivery area in the school. So being constructed during the initial phase of construction, but will remain afterwards. We're just running through the calculations. The total percentage of impervious surface during construction will be 41.1%, and that's based on all the existing impervious coverage of 147,000 square feet, the proposed building footprint of 42,690 square feet, and what I'm calling construction paving of 22,670 square feet. Also on sheet 15, you can see it's hatched out here, the area that's considered that construction paving. So that brings us to a total of 212,414 square feet, which is 41.1% of the net site area.
So what is it now? What is it construction period, and then what is it afterwards?
But that will be the maximum during construction, the 41.1%. Post-construction in the permanent condition, it will be 37.66%, which is below the 40% allowed.
And then, if I could just have Mr. Orr sworn in, he can show you the renderings, if that's okay? Ryan, can you just tell us about your employment and your connection with this job, just so the board knows?
Yes, our firm, KCBA Architects, was hired by the school district in order to design the building and the associated portions of the project. And I'm an architect and project manager for KCBA Architects.
And you're familiar with the renderings that were recently submitted to the township at the request of this board?
Yes.
Okay, can you just take us through the renderings that were submitted, please, and describe the board what's depicted?
Yes, so the first page here in the bottom left-hand corner, perspective of main entry. This is the main entry of the school. So straight ahead across from the crosswalk there is the front entry. To the right-hand side is the administration area. Overlooking the parking lot to the left-hand side is the gymnasium, the upper half of the gymnasium. And then behind is the classroom wing. If you flip to the next,
Could we stop just here until we get this record clear? I don't, I'm the B team here, but we need to get these exhibits labeled.
The letter to Kelly Kirk is the beginning of A6 through the record plan, and that would also include the architectural renderings that you're referencing now, correct?
Correct, yeah. What I was attempting to do was just mark the entire submission as one exhibit with its enclosures as A6, if that's okay. Instead of, marking every single exhibit one by one, which of course I could do, but I thought that just marking the submission as one exhibit might be more efficient.
Okay, do we have one labeled that as such?
Yeah,
That's
what I
fine.
ended,
I've been handed what council has asked to be marked A6. Arlene, do you have a sticker, please?
Since we have no one from the township here tonight, we'd like to make sure that those things are labeled properly.
And the challenge here is that none of the pages of the renderings are numbered, so you'll have to be very descriptive for the record.
Unless you want to individually label these exhibits.
I think Ryan can be descriptive maybe with regard to their date and what's indicated on the bottom left-hand corner for the record.
Thank you, you can continue, thanks.
okay. So again, that image I was speaking to in the bottom left-hand corner is the perspective of main entry. If you flip to the next page.
Can I ask one question on this?
Yes.
I see the school wing, which is kind of behind the Linwood Elementary School brick sign, right?
Correct.
The structure that's behind the small lion depiction with no windows, what is that?
That is a screen wall for a mechanical chiller that sits over top of the kitchen portion of the school.
So,
Just to the right of that is the gymnasium. The portion that is red with windows, that is the upper half of the gymnasium.
right, okay.
So just to the left of that, there's a stair tower and then a mechanical screen hiding the chiller.
And then it shows essentially a baseball backstop behind that, or some kind of fencing?
Yes, that is a baseball backstop.
But there isn't one, right?
No baseball field?
That's on township property.
Okay.
Oh. Okay. So it looks to be immediately behind the loading dock, right?
Correct. Well, not immediately, but yes,
Yeah.
behind the
Okay.
loading dock.
So there's really a road that will come in, a driveway. There's no that would come right through that depiction of that backstop into a loading dock there, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Moving to the second image, again, once again, bottom left-hand corner, title, perspective from Lawrence Road at main parking lot entrance. As stated, we're standing at the main parking lot entrance. So bus drop-off along Lawrence Road to the right. We are looking towards the site. Once again, the right-hand side, where it is red, is the classroom room. The center of the building area is the other with the parking to the left-hand side in the image. Moving to the third page, title, perspective from Lawrence Road at existing service driveway. This is the current driveway at Linwood Elementary, which services the cafeteria and lower mechanical rooms. Looking straight ahead, in the middle of the image would be the stair tower at the end of the classroom wing, with the classroom wing heading off to the right-hand side there. And then once again, all the way to the left, the administration wing.
So according to the plans, there's a retaining wall with a railing that should be essentially on the left center of this picture, right?
Yeah,
Or
it's-
somewhere, is that?
It's to the left,
Okay,
very
it's all the way
left-hand
there,
side
okay.
coming off of the.
And then there's walkways and sidewalks, 5-foot wide asphalt path, stairs, handrails that are not depicted on here, right?
Moving to the next page, title, perspective from Lawrence Road at edge of school property. This is from roughly where the school property line between the township park and school property is, looking up towards the new school building. This is the end of the classroom wing to the left, and the large portion where the red is there are classrooms, and then to the very right of that is the library.
So can I just ask you, I know we talked about this stormwater detention basin.
Yes.
Is that, this picture makes it look as if there is a steep hill from the edge of the road up until it flattens out going back to the school. And obviously the sidewalks aren't depicted here either. Is that in fact the case, that from the edge of the road, it'll be an immediate incline up? And is that essentially the front wall of this detention basin?
Yes, it's partially the existing condition as well, how it exists now, stepping up to that.
But just beyond that,
elevation.
essentially, it's going to go back down.
Correct. And then the final image is perspective from Lawrence Road access, or sorry, perspective from Lawrence Road across from Township Park. To the right in the image, you can see that baseball backstop that you described in the first image. And then looking across, that is the existing hill on Township property, looking back towards the classroom wing as previously described on the previous page.
But you did not, in this last one here, depict the basin at all, not, on this drawing, that doesn't show where the basin is, right?
On that last page,
Yes,
so we are standing essentially further south on Lawrence Road. So the basin would be above that hill. This is the hill that is actually on township property,
okay,
past school property.
yeah, so none of this is on township, this is on, not the school property, but everything on the right-hand side of this drawing is actually on township property.
Correct.
Which we, yeah, don't have. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from the other members of the board from Mr. Hannah or what we just heard?
I would just go back to the topic we talked about last time. for those instances and when there is water in this stormwater detention basin number 4, which, based on the draining of it, I'm not sure how fast it would drain if it were to fill up, but what is the plan to prevent kids or pets or anything from going in that while there's water in there?
We have talked with the planning commission as well about fencing, around the perimeter of that. We haven't made any final decisions about that, but that was discussed with the planning commission as part of their concern as well. I will add that from our original design of the detention basin, through the review from the township engineer and also discussion with the planning commission, we've done a couple things with the detention basin to make the footprint substantially smaller. So if you look at drawing 7, our grading and drainage plan, previously on our original design, the detention basin came all the way back almost to the end of the classroom wing here. Okay. We've since designed and incorporated in an underground detention infiltration system there to reduce the surface volume of the detention basin. So at this point, we have 2 underground facilities, one out in the front here and one back by the playground under the hard play surface here. Okay. So that has reduced the footprint of the traditional surface detention basin. So we've gone to that extent to try and minimize that as much as possible.
But that's going to be in the final stage, not in the temporary stage. I'm looking at the ENS plan, doesn't show that. So it shows the basin still being big.
Well, for ENS control measures, we had to, some of this grading comes back, although we're providing cover over that infiltration bed area sufficient during construction. I think we're about 2 or 3 feet above that final bed grade. But in order to make the volume requirements for the temporary sediment condition, we had to pull some of those grades back.
The other question I had is that I know there was testimony at the last that the inlets in front of the existing school drain under the school, and you haven't found that sewer line, storm sewer yet? That's not illustrated on this plan?
So you're talking about the drainage for the existing school in the courtyard of the existing school?
In the driveway, on the parking? Yeah, those. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so those drains tie into the plumbing inside the building. The owner's rep, Ken Matthews, is actually here. They're in the process of having the storm drain line TV'd. We've found the sewer line down in here, located that. And they've also located the storm connection out to the PennDOT storm sewer there. But all of that goes down through that storm out to the PennDOT system.
That's some of our concern with the impervious coverage is that during construction, you're going to have way more impervious than you did prior to construction because you're going to have both schools open at one time. So all that will be, most of that area, a lot of that area, not the front parking lots, but the back parking lot and the front of the school and the school itself will actually drain and be controlled somewhat by the sediment basin.
Right.
Okay.
So, I mean, the size of the sediment basin is taken into consideration, all the disturbed area up front, plus the drainage from the existing school as well. That's undisturbed, but it's still draining into that basin.
So just to clarify, the drains from that parking lot currently that go into the school, they then tie into the sanitary sewer lines?
No.
They remain as separate?
They have a separate storm line that goes out towards, the PennDOT system in Lawrence Road.
I have one more on 7.
Sheet
Sheet
number
7?
7?
Yes. You put in the underground infiltration and reduced the stormwater basin.
Correct.
The depth of the stormwater basin, has that changed?
No, we've just reduced the footprint of
And
that.
what would be the maximum depth of water?
Maximum depth of the water in there, 4.5 feet. During a 100-year storm, it would be 4.5 feet, yeah.
And how long would that 4.5 feet be there?
Within about 24 hours.
24 hours? Now,
During a 100-year storm.
Yeah, which we have every 10 years or so, or so it seems.
Probability, that's not,
The concern that you tried to address with possible fencing and all that, I mean, we have rules now, if you have a swimming pool, you have to have it fenced in and that kind of stuff. And this school is a magnet for kids. The purpose of the school, the playgrounds are there, the public playgrounds are there. So that's of utmost concern to me,
understood.
as what that protection is going to be. So, but we can't address that this evening,
What would you like me to
what your
address?
plans are.
Like I said, we're still talking about the possibility of fencing that. We'd like to hear, the other concerns of the planning commission, and as we move towards finalizing that, if that's a condition that they would like to impose, I'm sure the school district would.
And as far as you know, there's no laws that say you have to do anything?
I don't know of any of the township ordinance that requires that. I'm sure if there was, the township engineer would have cited that in his original review. I mean, he had concerns, and that's why we put in the additional underground system to minimize that footprint. So, I mean, we're taking reasonable steps to try and reduce as much of the surface condition as we can. There's just so much volume we can handle underground due to area and expense, so.
I just want to ask, I mean, based on, this is a very helpful plan, but the additional materials you have are very helpful. But it looks to me like every bit of this property will drain into that basin.
Well, eventually, yeah. I mean, it'll go,
Every bit during, I realize you may build up into these two underground detention basins, but every element of this project directs the entire flow of stormwater into that detention basin. And when you've said 24 hours, that's based on modeling of how much you hold back in the underground detention
Yeah.
basins and then how they flow out and all that?
yeah, so they are holding back at the same time
Yeah,
as the,
I understand.
as the surface base.
But I was just going to the idea that this detention basin would drain out in 24 hours. That's reflective of all the water that goes directly into it, and then as well as the flows from the detention basins
Yeah, I mean,
and all that
there may be some still stored in the underground
Sure.
that are draining,
below the.
that are
overflow.
infiltrating into the ground as this is draining out as well.
But just to clarify, not all those front parking lots don't drain. Do they drain to that basin too? I don't see,
The main parking lot here?
yeah, and the rain gardens up front, because I see them going out to inlets on Lawrence Road, but I don't see that, any inlets going into, or end walls going into the basin.
No, there's no discharge from the main parking lot out to Lawrence Road. There's the two rain gardens here. Any overflow from those will be directed through a pipe to other inlets in the main parking lot here.
I'm looking at the existing conditions, so the existing,
Oh.
yeah, they do.
For the
The-
record, sheet 4 we're referring to.
Right, which was in your original packet. Two inlets, one inlet in the loop driveway in front of elementary school drop-off that drains out to Lawrence Road. Everything else is essentially internal to the site.
Okay. Mr. Casoli?
No questions.
Mr. Richardson?
Nothing further?
Does that conclude what you had to present?
That's all that we have, yes.
Okay. And we'll have to go through the litany here. Anyone that received certified mail would like to testify? Anyone that received regular mail that would like to testify? Anyone at all that would like to testify? Hearing none, we will conclude this case, and we will have a decision rendered at our next meeting, which is January 9th.
I would just ask that my exhibits be accepted into the record, if that's okay.
They are.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, we can go call the next case, which would be Z 18-32, Andrew Pigeon and Erin Dougherty, owners of 116 Ivy Rock Lane, Havertown, PA. And as you come forward, we're going to go off the record for a little while and take a little break while you. And if our solicitor could explain to you on the record what exactly we have a problem with our board tonight with only 4 members.
So, Mr. Dougherty?
Mr. Pigeon, yes.
Pigeon. Mr. Pigeon. Ordinarily, this is a 5-member board. Tonight, there are 4 voting members present. You have the opportunity, the option, rather, to elect whether you would like to wait for a vote with all 5 members here, have a vote with 4 members. A tie would result in a denial of your application, or have the 4 board members that are present vote, have the 5th member who is not present read the transcript and vote based on the reading of that transcript.
Okay, I guess if it comes to a 2-2 tie and the 5th person matters, I'll elect the transcript.
You have to make a decision now.
Oh, yeah, that would be my decision. Okay. Yes, the transcript one, please.
So that we'll have all 5 members of the board voting on your application.
But not the line,
Okay? Now,
if it needs to be.
right. That would be fine. And the next thing we have to do is swear both of you in, or was only one testifying, or?
I mean, both of our names are on,
Okay.
I don't know if you need.
We would just ask you to testify one at a time, so if Arlene could swear in both of them, and we'll begin. We need to have your name and address too, if you could just say that.
My name is Andrew Pigeon at 116 Ivy Rock Lane, Havertown, PA 19083.
And
My name is Erin Pigeon at 116 Ivy Rock Lane in Havertown, Pennsylvania.
so you would be the same person as documented?
Yes, I'm sorry, yeah.
Okay. Thank you. Very good. What would you like to offer to?
So I do have some things that I would like to submit. Exhibit A1 is the proposed plot plan for the property after construction. Exhibit A2 is a photograph taken from the back window of my existing house, showing the property behind mine where the variance would be needed from the 25 feet from the setback. And then Exhibit A3 is a photograph facing to the left of other additions on my street that are very similar to what I would be doing. That picture is taken from where the addition would be. And then Exhibit A4 is a 4-page construction document by my architect.
You'd like to bring that forward? So you just have one copy of that?
I have a copy for it.
Okay, good.
And then is there more plot plans floating around, or is it just that?
Thank you.
We have big ones too, but we didn't bring.
That's gonna be in
Just 1 second, we're going to look at something on the record here. We're still on the record, though.
What, is that submitted with the application?
We're looking at the deed that was submitted to make sure that we have standing. What's the parcel ID number? Okay. Please proceed now. What would you like to tell us?
Okay, so I guess what we're applying for is a variance from the 25-foot rear setback to the property. The addition size that we were looking for and presented, it looked like we would come up to 19 feet. So we're asking for a variance of 6 feet to the rear setback.
The question that comes up now is variances aren't given automatically. You have to have hardship, and you can go into a little detail about what exactly is the reasoning for.
So we are a family of 5 now in the original house, which is a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom home. So we are, as a family now, actively debating on addition versus moving, since the house no longer suits our needs. The addition that would suit our needs that we did have the architectural plans drawn up for did require to go to the 19 feet to the back of the property. I guess the pictures were meant to show, the lack of an actual house directly behind where the variance is being requested from. And then also the second picture would be the fact that the addition is pretty in line with other additions in the neighborhood on my street.
Mr. Consola, do you have any questions?
I'm sure. Did you talk to your neighbors about the addition?
Yes.
What did they say?
Seems like everybody is on board with it. There were some questions about drainage and privacy that were addressed with people that are here. And then on the other 2 sides, they were both, one of them was actively petitioning us to do it rather than move, and the other one was good with it.
So my understanding is all the neighbors were in favor of it?
Correct.
And the one that had concerns, that was addressed?
But they were the concerns about drainage
Like
of,
that our water all runs to the front of the house.
How did you resolve that?
so we would do the same thing. So on our existing home, all of the water is funneled to the front of the house now, and the architect and the builder are both aware of how we would want to do that again with the gutters. And then we also spoke to the neighbors, and we would be, right along the fence line that you can see there, we would be adding, it would take years, but we would be adding privacy trees there as well.
And you mentioned you're a family of 5, I assume it's 3 children? And with the new addition, how many bedrooms are gonna be in the new house?
There would be 4.
Okay, master
We're adding
bedroom and
one.
1 for.
Yeah, so adding a master bedroom and a master bathroom up top, and adding a family room and a powder room / mudroom down bottom.
Okay, that's all I have, Ed.
Mr. Richardson?
Yeah, in your sit down with your architects in the design phase, is this the minimum amount of area that's required?
Yes. Yes. I would think for us, I mean,
Meet all your needs?
yes.
And behind, there's an open space behind you?
So it is it's an odd property for our neighborhood. It's kind of, and the owners are here too if you want to hear from them, but, so directly behind, so there's a home that comes directly back, and then also the excess, I guess it's because the streets come in on a little bit of an angle in the beginning. So there's a lot, and directly behind our home is not like the typical
lot.
home. There wouldn't be another home directly behind it. It's directly behind my next door neighbors.
Okay. And that, they own that land?
They own that.
They
land.
own that land, correct.
That's all I have.
Mr. Rose?
So, I'm just trying to see on the plot plan, we have we are talking about the rear setback. And its requirement's 25 feet, and you'll be down to 18 feet, 3.5 inches. Right? The rest of the house isn't being changed, the existing house.
No.
And it looks like the fireplace that's being added is that just a direct vent out the sidewall?
It's gonna be a gas fireplace, but yes, direct vent outside. The gas
I was
lines
gonna
are
say,
already in
because
place.
there's no chimney or anything in any of the design.
No,
And there's no plans to put a patio in the back, or a deck, or,
no.
and was there ever any analysis of whether you exceed the,
It's on there, the
Impervious
impervious.
coverage?
It's so, honestly, with what is coming out and being replaced, it didn't change much at all. I think it went from 41 to 43, if I remember
I guess
correctly.
here it's 40 to 44.7 with 45 is the max, so keep in mind that could put you over if you are doing like patio walkways around the house or anything like that, right? You're right up against the limit.
Right,
And, so you're removing, what must be a concrete slab in the back
yes.
Shed, where the-
The shed's being removed as well.
and a shed. Yeah, got it. To be removed, okay. And, so other than the removal of the shed and the sidewalk, everything else on the existing house will remain the same. The front you have a front patio.
Correct.
And a slight walkway from the driveway.
Yes.
Any plan to expand that or to straighten it or relocate it in any way?
There's the walkway, there's actually rocks from the driveway to so the whole thing is considered not impervious currently.
So you have a sidewalk on the side of your house, on the driveway side of your house, going
Driveway.
back past your house.
Correct.
When it comes to the back, is that going to walk into a door on the new addition?
Yes. The difference is, to be honest with you, the door would be exactly where the current sidewalk goes now, because that goes directly around the back, around an air conditioner and to the back patio. So it's about, I don't know, 4 or 5 feet off the side, the end of the house.
Yep.
So that's where the door would be. So it wouldn't be changing.
So there's going to be a door that's essentially going into the
Mudroom,
mudroom?
yes.
Okay, got it. Just past the powder room. I see it. Okay. And that doesn't require any additional straightening or lengthening or expansion of that walkway?
It's according to what I haven't measured it myself, but that's what the architect told us.
And on the other side of the house, there is no walkways or no impervious surfaces, and there won't be any.
No.
Okay. I don't have any other questions.
I heard the testimony of your removal of shed. Can you, I don't see that listed as being removed.
On the plot plan, I think there's a little corner area listed there. The shed was there when we got there, so I'm pretty sure I saw it in the plot plan, but I haven't reviewed it since I turned in my application a couple months ago.
So it's not the shed that's in photograph one? Is it the-
Yes, that's the shed, yes.
Okay, so that one's gonna be removed.
That's in the back left corner of them. There's plenty of room left. Did a good job of the last 50-degree day. There's a lot of room in the garage. So everything in there could go in the garage.
Okay. Is that because you're too close to the addition?
What's that?
Why you're removing the shed, or is it?
A little bit of both. Yeah, it's, at that point, it would be a little bit more open with that fence. And then, yes, the addition would only give us a couple of feet there to where the shed is now.
Yeah, and there's a 10-foot requirement, separation, ordinance. So
That would be,
Okay.
we didn't measure it, that would probably be tight.
If I can just interrupt, Ms. Doherty, while Mr. Pigeon's testifying, if you wouldn't mind just reserving your responses, if you'd like to add those after, just so we can keep the record straight, and for our court reporter's sake.
Thank you. Anything else you'd like to add?
I don't
One more
believe
item
so.
on when you're gonna remove the shed, you're tearing up the pad also?
The rocks underneath, yes. Yeah, there'll be grass, planting grass.
The rain from the roof on the new addition, it will be put into downspouts, and where do they go?
To the front, as it is now.
And
So in the front, in between where the sidewalk is and the home, there's actually, like rocks like down the shore. They were there when we got here, and everything now currently comes from the downspouts to a pipe that filters to basically the front of the driveway.
And
So we would have the same system in place,
it dumps onto your driveway, and then your driveway is sloped which way?
towards the street.
So all of the water that hits the roof of the house, which is, or the sidewalk, will be directed into the street.
Yes, in theory, unless there's something else you'd rather me do that's not an issue.
Well, that's your plan, though.
That was until that question, yes.
We're not, you're the engineers, so.
Correct, nor am I.
Anybody else?
I don't have any other questions.
No other questions?
Okay, now we'll go through the litany. Do you have anything you'd like to add? Did anyone receive certified mail they would like to testify? Regular mail? Anyone else that would like to testify at all? Hearing none, we will close the record and, excuse me.
Before we do close the record, Mr. Pigeon, would you like to move to have these exhibits marked A1 through A4 admitted to the record?
Yes, please.
Now, we are ready to close the record, and the decision will be taken at the next meeting on January 9th. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll call our next case, which is Z18-33. Alexander Yuskovich and Sonia Zizulin, owners of 2 Spring Mill Lane, Haverford, PA, folio number 2204-0065456, who seek a variance from the provisions of 182-720.C6, steep slopes, and 154A, slope control to construct a 233 long retaining wall 5 feet from the property, from the side and rear property to control water runoff from adjoining properties. Yes,
Do I need to?
and you are,
I'm Tim Young from Catania Engineering.
you're the engineer, and you're going to provide testimony and handle the case,
Yes.
and you don't need to swear him in, right?
Arlene, would you please swear him in?
Okay. Please proceed.
All right, so property is 2 Spring Mill Lane in Haverford, PA. It's zoned special residential development, which is R-1A. And we are proposing to construct a retaining wall along the rear and side of the property. And that's to help control erosion and water runoff from the adjoining properties. You can kind of see on the plan, but from the survey, all the water, all the grading kind of comes his property. And currently there's two swales that go on either side, and it all kind of drains down to the front. And currently, there's a lot of water that sits in those swales because it's a low grade there. So we're seeking a variance for steep slopes and slope control. And we're disturbing steep slopes there, and it's totaling roughly 2,700 square feet of the slopes on the property. And if the board approves it, then we'll go through the township engineer for approval on their end as well. And then, if anyone has any questions, and
Mr. Richardson?
Not right yet.
Can you explain what you mean by a 5-foot retaining wall?
Sure.
5 foot, go ahead.
okay, yeah, no, I think I know what you're saying. So, we had it 5 foot off the property line, because there's at certain points where, it's an EP Henry, single face block that we're using, so it's gonna be 5 foot off, and we need to have a grid that controls, overturning of the wall. And for the height that we're going in the back, according to EP Henry specs, we need to go at least 5 feet, so we don't want to intrude onto any neighboring properties that way.
How high is the wall from the
So-
grade?
It varies. So in the very back corner, it's about 6 foot, and then it gets, depending upon the grade in the back, it comes down to about 2 feet on the edge near Spring Mill Road, and then on the edge near College Ave, it ends at 3 feet. So it's going to be stepped up.
So when you're on their property, on the property you're referring to, you would see the face of the wall and the grade behind it would be higher.
On 2 Spring Mill Lane property.
Correct.
Yeah, so that you would see the wall, and then on top there would be, so when the wall steps down, there's grades in the back that help flow the water from behind the wall out to the side. So it will be stepped, and then so we would see the wall, see the front face, and then the steps going down.
And how about on the west side?
It would be the same thing.
6 feet all the way?
So yeah, so right in the corner is where it meets, so right in that back corner, so it's about 6 foot there, and then it goes down, it'll be the same thing, it'll step down. This side's a little bit steeper. Same concept, yeah.
And then I assume that you're gonna remove all the soil on Spring Mill Road
Yes.
in order to get that, so then that's the low point of the property?
Yeah. So down here, we have some preliminary grading down. That would all be relatively flat along the bottom of the wall on their property. And then up above, we just match the grades and with the wall, so there's no disturbance on any neighboring properties.
Is there a fence around the property?
No. There is on this one side, on the west side over there. Not on the north, no. Are you good?
Excuse me?
No, go ahead.
I was just more concerned about having a 6-foot drop from one property to the next.
Sure. Would it be okay, instead of having, like, putting a fence on this side of the property, would it be okay to put like a row of hedges or bushes there to protect?
I'm not gonna say what's right or wrong, I just wanna know what your plan is.
Okay, the plan going down the line would be to put a row of hedges or bushes there, yes.
That's it for right now, Ed. Bill?
So before we go any further, I think we need to go through the litany about the board members. We neglected to do that. If you can handle it.
And, sir, you were present when I explained that this is ordinarily a 5-member board.
Yeah.
And that it's your option to elect for the 4 members who are present to vote today, or when a vote is rendered, and I would result in the denial of the application. You can elect for a 5, to have all 5 members vote, or have the 4 members vote, and have the 5th member read the transcript and vote based on his reading of the transcript.
We'll go with that last option.
Okay. Now, you, Mr. Rhodes, I'm sorry.
That's all right. I just wanted to make sure I understand. So this retaining wall in the back corner, I guess,
Sure.
let's call it the northwest corner. That, the base of the wall is 383 feet contour level, right?
Yes.
And the dwelling is something like 378. At the flagstone patio, just above the flagstone patio, there's a 378 contour, right? So there is a 5-foot drop at grade currently
Yes.
from the bottom of the wall to the house. And the wall is going to be 6 feet high in that corner. That's the highest where the wall is because it has been stepping up to that corner, right?
Correct. Yeah, correct.
Okay, so from the house to the top of that wall is 11 feet.
No, that would be, so the house is at roughly that 378.
Right, the base of the wall is 383. And then there's 6 feet of wall, bottom walls.
Right, yeah, so yeah, the bottom of the wall is 377.3, and the top of the wall is 384.
Okay.
So it would still be about 6 feet from the house to the top of, but the retaining wall is gonna cut into those steep slopes there.
Got it. So the top of the wall will be essentially flush with grade up in that corner.
Yes, yeah.
Got it. Okay. And so as you look over the wall, you literally will just see the continuation of the current slope going right up from the wall.
Correct, yeah. Yeah, no disturbance on any neighboring properties.
Okay. And is there a reason, I really have no idea. It looks like the retaining wall, the two-sided dimensions along the north and the west side, let's say, end at exactly the building envelope line. Is there a reason that the wall stops there?
You asked, why does it need to go that far?
Or why it was chosen to go that far?
So we had originally decided that, and it was partially due to some health reasons, that to make this as flat as possible, to make it usable, safe, because currently it's almost unusable in certain areas, especially in the back and on the side here. So the idea was to make it as flat as possible in this entire area to have more usable space in the back and side yard. So that was the reason we brought it out that far, to have the grading to be as flat as possible, as much as we could make it.
So the bottom of the wall will now, so where will all this soil go? You're gonna truck it out?
Yeah, so yeah, that would be from the Anina's point of view, yeah.
And when it's all said and done, it's essentially a flat backyard surrounded by a wall.
Correct, yeah.
And the infiltration trench I see would, in theory, capture water that comes over the wall, right, or works its way down the slope. Presumably, there's some sloping in the backyard for runoff.
Yeah, yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it's
not completely flat. It's crowned or something, right?
Yeah, so the grading, it's all from any point where we have a couple of yard drains in there.
Yeah.
It's typically 2%. I mean, it varies based upon the conditions that we have, but we made it flat, but with a slight grade to have water run off into the inlets.
Okay.
So we will be collecting, because as we show that here, we have roof drains that come, and that's part of the problem that's currently happening. Is it's water runoff from the neighbors, and then from the area of the house, the roof drains just run straight into the backyard, into these swales, and then water pools up. So we would have the roof drains run into this infiltration trench instead of, because.
So show me where the swales are, because it looks like it's all pretty much uphill.
So from the existing
Yeah.
grading, that 377 on the side, on this west side,
Yeah.
a lot of water pools in between that 377 and the 376. And then on the north side, there's that contour as well. But there's water that pools around there as well.
Really either side of the house.
Correct, yes.
And so, by my count, there's 4 roof pitches draining through 3 lines into this infiltration trench. And there are 3 yard drains on the trench, 4 yard drains on the trench. So there's 7 inputs into this trench. And the trench then has been perked to seep out at the proper levels and all that?
Yeah, well, we will design that after, once this,
And when you design that, then you go back to planning or the township engineer?
Yeah, so we would go to the township engineer, yes. Yeah, and they would have to approve, obviously, any of the E&S stuff.
Do you know if the hillside that you're going to be cutting into has had construction on it before? Have you understood the history of that, whether it really is undisturbed soil or if it's been disturbed by people before?
Sure. Do you know if that's, yeah. They had just moved in July, right? July, so prior to July, we're not sure who owned it, I guess. But I don't know. We're not aware of anything previously.
And the reason that you couldn't build this, if you were a little closer to the house, would you still need the variance?
Yeah, we're still cutting into steep slopes in here.
Right, in the shaded area.
Yeah, the shaded area is the steep slopes, yes.
But if you brought the fence in or the retaining wall in, essentially we're trying to figure out the need for it to be right where you've got it and whether you could avoid the steep slope and, right?
I don't think it's possible to avoid the steep slopes because no matter where we go, you're going to be, you literally have to come right up next to the house and then you essentially have no backyard anymore.
And of the existing flooding problems on the side of the house, how many of them are tied to the roof or as a result of roof runoff?
Well, they both are partially. So it's partially due to the roof runoff and it's partially due to adjoining properties. How much is one or the other, it's difficult to tell.
I don't have any other questions.
Mr. Chair,
Go ahead.
could you talk to me about your picture?
Sure. So those two pictures, I believe. Those are pictures one's from the swale in the back, in the back on the north side, and then one is a picture from that west side. And that was, I don't believe they're in color, but they show that during a recent rainstorm, the picture was taken and it shows there's just a lot of water and the water just sits there and doesn't drain well there.
Sir, before you go much further, would you like to have the picture that was submitted with your application as well as the grading plan marked as exhibits for the board to consider? Okay.
Yeah, so
when Arlene sits back down, would you just explain what's been marked as A1?
So A1 is the grading plan with the retaining wall and infiltration trench, and then A2, those are two pictures of up against the house where all the water it eventually floods in, and over time there's been some rotting along the boards on the exterior of the house.
Where are these pictures from the house? Just like ballpark, do you know where? We see the outline of the house. We've seen where you have existing flooding. Where are these two pictures taken?
So one is from this west side coming in, and then the other one was from the north side in there. And there's like a wooden trim board around the bottom. That was all from the water.
In the bottom of A2, there appears to be a drain pipe.
Okay.
What's that?
So that's one of the roof drains that leads into the yard. So the roof drain, the current roof drains just lead onto the surface of the property, where the proposed roof drains would lead into the infiltration trench beneath the yard.
So referring to the bottom of A2 again, that picture, those windows there are ground level or a couple of feet above ground level?
How far the windows in that room where we met before are, how far off the ground they are? A foot or two, right? About 2 feet.
2 feet.
Right, so that picture was taken when it was being excavated around the foundation, but the grade level is approximately 2 feet.
Okay, so that's not water under there. Looks like a foundation and then it's a piece of a wooden foundation or?
Yeah. Do you mind if he takes a look real quick?
It's a,
He'll need to be sworn in if he's
Sworn in?
going to testify.
Alexander Yushkevich.
Would you please spell your name? Your last name, please.
Alexander Yushkevich.
Would you spell your last name, please?
Yushkevich. Yushkevich.
Marlene, would you swear?
Difficult, I know. Can I approach?
yeah, in reference to the picture at the bottom of A2,
Yes.
this wood is a wood foundation?
Sill place.
That's a sill plate?
Yes.
And this is
It's a
brick or
board. It's a board. Above.
That's wood?
Yes. It's wood.
Okay. And
Under the stucco. So we have to remove the stucco and we have replaced the sill board along the west and northern.
they were
was-
damaged by water?
It was rotten, yes.
Okay. And this drain pipe, what's it connect to? This downspout
To the gutters along the roof line.
above?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, that's all I have. Thank you.
Okay, I have a few questions.
Sure.
Beginning with, refresh me again on the fencing around the property.
So there's a fence that comes along on the west side, but that's your neighbor's property, correct? Yeah. You want to place a fence? Okay. So as he just said, he talked to the neighbors. So there's an existing fence on the west side, and they talked to the neighbors on the adjoining property on the north side, and they agreed they would put a fence up there.
Because, yeah, I don't know if that's going to be sufficient, because if they were out there working on their property and didn't have the fence up, then a 6-7 foot drop onto your property without any warning is going to be substantial.
Right. So we can put a fence in up top for sure.
So the question is,
So I would say we can construct that before doing the retaining wall.
I don't know if you have enough room. That's what I'm trying to get at next.
Okay.
The question I have is, what is the drainage area to these two proposed swales that are going in?
But it's part of the house. That's not the entire house. It's part of the house, and then
Oh, that doesn't drain to the two swales you're putting behind the wall.
oh, I see what you're saying. Oh, behind the wall. Oh, okay. I thought you were talking about the existing.
No.
Okay. And we don't have it surveyed. I'm not sure how much is coming in there.
Well, there's no way that you can get approval to do this without knowing how big that swale needs to be to cut off the drainage area, so you have a stabilized condition that you wouldn't be creating a flooding problem on the neighbor's property.
Okay, so the water that's coming off here, that would be just running behind. Any additional water that doesn't get infiltrated into the wall or behind the wall would come out the side. So we're not
Infiltrated in behind the wall?
So if any of the water is coming in, water runoff from the adjoining properties can flow in behind the wall, and it'll run out down the side. So we put in the grading to connect with the adjoining property in the back, so all the water flows out.
I don't see any openings in the wall for drainage down into your yard. I think that sort of defeats the purpose. You show a swale, and I'm assuming that you're going to try to take all the neighboring water and drain it down those two swales. One to Spring Mill Road and one down to College Avenue.
Yes.
But you don't know how big those swales have to be stable?
We don't know the area that's coming in behind it.
I can't approve this in my mind because I don't know that you've shown me the swale size necessary to be put in there. In other words, you have a large swale shown on your existing drawing, and then you have a very narrow swale shown on your proposed drawing. And you're already having flooding problems because the swale that's much bigger on the house doesn't handle it.
Right.
So now, how does these proposed swales, how can that manage the stormwater without knowing what the drainage area is?
We can put in, if it'll help, we can put in a yard drain behind the wall and collect it that way.
Still need to know the drainage area.
Correct, yeah.
Yeah. So without knowing the drainage area, we don't know whether you're making the problem worse or improving the problem.
Okay.
The other question I have is the issue, now that's just my opinion, the other board members may have other opinions. The other thing is whether or not there should be a fence on top of your wall to prevent people from falling off. Because while we do have a fence on the property to the west, we do not have one. We have a contingency plan that the property owned by the Commons, which is behind this property, said that they might put up a fence or they will put up a fence, but they don't have one now.
Correct.
So that would be a concern of mine that somebody could be wandering in their backyard at night and fall over the wall.
Okay. A fence, we can put into the construction sequence to install a fence prior to the grading work.
Okay, but the drainage area is going to be pretty critical, so you're going to need to know if that proposed wall is too close to the property line. It may need to come closer to the infiltration trench to be wider and deeper. And that's what we need to establish before that I could sign off on a project like this. Okay. Anyone else?
No.
Is there anything else that you'd like to offer?
Nope, that's everything.
Okay. Anyone, anything else we need? We just need to go through the litany.
And are you requesting the board admit to the record A1 and A2?
Yes.
Anyone that received certified mail like to testify? Anyone that received regular mail that would like to testify? Anyone at all that would like to testify? Hearing none, we'll close the record and
Mr. Chair,
yeah.
are you going to want him to submit?
It's up to the rest of the board. Does anyone else feel the same as I do, that those documents should be submitted, the drainage area at least, and a little better plan on fencing?
Well, I think that the sufficiency of the infiltration trench to handle all of it might be appropriate for a township engineer to review, right?
Yes, yeah.
I don't see where any water is getting to the infiltration trench from the offsite property, so that's my issue right now.
Because the wall would be blocking it?
The swale was directing it away. It's not like it's flowing over top. If there was no swale there and all the water was allowed just to go over the wall, then you would have erosion of the wall and fall over.
Right.
The other thing is the structural stability of the wall, whether if the wall fails, will it slump off the neighboring property, so it's so close to the property line, are issues that.
You don't think that's the purview of the engineer?
That would be the purview of the engineer, but knowing whether or not you're taking out a steep slope, working in a steep slope, putting a wall so close to the property line without having design for the swale to see if it's capable of handling and not even having the drainage area. I don't know. We're trying to look at for the steep slope issue. We're trying to find out whether we can do it without erosion or causing damage to the environment. And I can't make that decision right now with what I have. But so the issue is, does any of the other board members want to have that information or are happy with what they have? Mr. Casuli, are you content with the plans that have been submitted?
Yeah, I'd like you to bring back the other information.
Sure, yeah.
Mr. Richardson?
So we should continue the case.
If you can submit that information, then we will continue the case on January 9th.
Okay.
So would the public comment remain open for the entire application or just the supplemental?
It would only be for the supplemental information. Okay? Is that
So
clear?
it'd be, you need drainage area and then the fence, correct?
Yeah, the issue of the fence to be addressed more formally, and the issue of the drainage area off-site, and the sufficient design and spacing of the retaining wall from the property line to make sure the swell can fit in as necessary. Hearing nothing else, then we'll close this record. Continue this record till the next meeting. That's it. Thank you. Our next case is Z 18-34, Janice Rolnick and William Sines, owners of 831 and 835 Penn Street, Bryn Mawr, PADC folio number 2205-0081400, who seek variances from the provisions of 182-713B and 182-711B2 and 182-801 and or 182-802 to allow creation of a new building lot on which there is an existing non-conforming garage that will remain zoned R6 in Ward 5.
Sir, before you begin, you've heard my statement earlier about this being a five-member board and the applicant's option to elect whether you'd like five members to vote on that. If you'd like to wait to present your case the next hearing with five members, or let these four members vote. The fifth member reading the transcript and making a vote, or have these four members alone vote a tie, resulting in a denial.
Yeah, we'd like to present our case tonight, and we'll ask that the fifth member review the transcripts and be permitted to vote. I have a number of exhibits I want to enter. I don't know if you want to take a break so I can get them numbered.
Yeah, if we could swear you in first, then. And your name and position and address for the record?
My name is Dennis O'Neill. I'm a professional engineer with Herbert McCumbee, Consulting Engineers and Surveyors, Bryn Mawr.
Thank you. It would be on that page.
There are fifth board members.
Let's go off the record here for just a second. And we're ready. Go ahead and tell us what you'd like to.
Good evening. I've given you a binder with 10 exhibits, which I'll be referring to. Exhibit A1 is a copy of the application that was submitted for this hearing tonight. A2 is a copy of the deed to show that the applicants have standing and that they own the property. A3 is a copy of my CV. A4 is 5 subdivision and land development plan sheets, which were submitted to the township as part of the current subdivision and land development process. A5 is the presentation plan on the board. In your binder, you have a reduced copy to follow, which is a rendering of essentially the grading plan that's included in your A4. A6 is an aerial view of the property taken from a Google Earth view. A7 is a street view from Penn Street in front of the existing twin. A8 is a street view from Penn taken from the easterly corner of the vacant lot. A9 is a copy of the Delaware County Planning Commission review letter. And A10 are documents from the applicant confirming the existing use, which includes a certificate, a use certificate issued by the township in 2008, and supporting documents in the form of letters from neighbors, which were used to demonstrate to the township that the use existed prior, was not conforming at the time in 2008, but existed prior to the ordinance which would have made it non-conforming. Brief background of the process. The applicant owns a 16,000 square foot property along the southern side of Penn Street, south of Lancaster Avenue. The applicant is proposing to subdivide the parcel, which is zoned R6, into 2 lots for construction of 1 new single-family home. The existing parcel contains 1/2 of a semi-detached twin home, a large garage, which on the color renderized plan is the tan building to the rear of the lot, a stone parking area, an existing driveway, and several other improvements such as walks and patios. The existing garage is currently used as a leased facility for a landscaper and an electrician. The garage is non-conforming in that it is built on the rear property line and the side property line, so there is no setback for that garage. It is also non-conforming in that it is greater than the 625 square feet which would be permitted by ordinance, and it is greater than the permitted of the proposed primary structure on a building when the building is built. Pursuant to your ordinances, section 713B, no lot can be formed when part of that lot is already occupied by a building unless that building and any proposed buildings comply with the zoning. So we're here before you tonight because we have a non-conforming use and balcony area with the existing garage. The plan is to retain the existing garage on the site. There is a small portion of the garage, approximately 160 feet, which are proposed to be removed as part of this proposal. The existing garage now, as it sits in the field, is 2,260 square feet, and it will be 2,100 square feet when we're done. We're proposing to construct a single-family dwelling that you see on the A5 exhibit as the lighter tan building facing Penn Street. The darker building on your plan is the existing twin home that will remain. Both existing and proposed buildings on lots 1 and 2 will conform in every way with area and bulk. So there's no variances needed for the new structures. The variance that we're seeking is to maintain the existing garage. We believe that in section 180-801 and section 180-802 that existing conditions, existing uses and buildings which existed prior to the ordinance making them non-conforming would be allowed to continue in their present state. Exhibit 10, you will find a series of documents which have been produced by the current owner of the property. Which is a certificate of use and occupancy issued by the township on November 26th, 2008, in response to a request dated September 22nd, 2008, that they be granted use, continued use of the garage. Attached to that is a series of letters which were addressed to the township and to the owner, indicating that they had information relative to the date that the use started, and all of the letters that were attached are either a neighbor in the neighborhood at the time or a person who either rented the facility or worked at the site or had some history of the site and the owners to indicate that the garage was built circa 1940 and that it was used as a garage for commercial use, and there was even a mushroom facility on the site at one time in that period of time between 1940 and the time that the owners previous to the applicant purchased the property in 1982. In 1982, the use continued on as a non-conforming use for a garage to be rented out for garage spaces, and it was mainly used for commercial vehicles to be parked at that location. We are proposing to make improvements to the driveway. This driveway will act as a common driveway through an easement to provide parking spaces for the twin. Currently, there is a large stone area in the back of the lot which is being removed and replaced with that paved area for their parking. We are providing a driveway to a garage in the front, and they'll have some additional space in the back, but there are 2 spaces and a garage allotted for on the site. If you look at Exhibit A6, which is the aerial view, you can see the garage in the back right-hand corner of the site. It is a long building that follows along the property line, and then a shaped garage with several garage doors that face Penn Street. They are, and you can tell by the elevation differences in the building, they are slightly different in size and shape. They are below the 16-foot requirement. There is a garage on the neighboring property on, we have it listed as lands of Archibald W. McMichael, which is attached to this garage. They share a common party wall. There is an approximately 4 to 5 foot drop behind to the properties behind. There's a portion of a wall along the back of the twin, and the garage forms the other portion of that drop. We are aware that we will continue through subdivision and land development should we receive approval for the existing nonconformities from the zoning hearing board. Mrs. Rolnick is with me tonight. If you have any questions regarding the authenticity of the letter she wrote in Exhibit A10 and the certificate of occupancy which she obtained. And I can answer any other questions you may have about the application.
Okay. Mr. Richardson.
I'll pass for right now.
Mr. Rhodes?
All right, so let's talk about the garage. How many businesses use the garage based on the correspondence under A10? It looks like at the times there have been multiple businesses. There's a certificate of occupancy for an electrician. How many businesses are there now?
I would respectfully defer that to Mrs. Rolnick. She would have a better handle on that. And we can swear her in and she could probably answer that question.
Do you, Dennis, know if there's been any analysis of vehicles, commercial vehicles coming in and going out of the garage?
There has not been a traffic study done as part of the subdivision process.
Do you have a sense of how many people work in the building?
It's storage of vehicle. It's parking. So there's not employee.
There's no people. Is there any bathroom?
To my knowledge.
Is there any bathroom in the garage?
I have not been in the garage.
And on lot 2 with the garage, with the driveway that kind of around which the garage wraps, the new proposed driveway, and the building, the new building, and the new driveway, what's your impervious percentages?
The proposed impervious on lot 1, which is the lot with the existing
Townhome?
twin,
Yeah.
the total impervious on that lot is 42.4%. There's a maximum of 75% permitted. The impervious surface on proposed lot 2 is 60.9%. 60.9%. And under the single-family regulations, which that home would be built under, there's a maximum permitted of 65%.
And for this area, what is the required rear and side yard setback? It's 25 feet and at least 7 on either side?
That is side yard on a single-family home for lot 2. Required is 7 on each side with a minimum aggregate of 14, yes. Lot 2 is being developed under a single-family reg. Lot 1 is a twin reg.
So there are different zones?
They're zoned the same, but they have different requirements.
In the plan of subdivision, sheet 1 of 5, I don't think the plan is the plan show the new driveway on the subdivision plan?
It does, yeah. It wouldn't be on the plan of subdivision. It would be on the grading plan sheet
Only on the
too.
grading plan, okay.
Yes.
And what's the proposed residence has a ground floor square footage of
A footprint
the proposed home on lot 2?
has a footprint of 1,160 square feet.
24 by 48,
Yes,
including the garage.
including the garage. It's a single-car garage. There is a house similar to this, which was built on this street. It's modeled after that structure.
And then, the front yard setback is set at 20 feet, and is the, did you do the study on the, setbacks, along the street?
We did.
Median average setback?
We did, and we're holding that house back beyond that 20 foot to make.
What was the number you got?
It was, I don't have my exhibits in front of me. Hold on, please. It's 24 feet.
The average is 24 feet, but you're 20 feet setback, so,
Well, we're showing a 20-foot setback, which is the requirement. The house is set back at 24 feet.
okay, so your house is set back, and that is shown on,
That would be shown on sheet 1 on the zoning compliance chart under lot 2 provided. Front yard setback 24 feet.
okay, got it. And that 24 feet is based on the median.
The median, that's correct.
Shouldn't the building envelope be showed at 24 feet then?
This is a discussion that I've had several times with the planning commission. I believe that as a professional engineer, your requirement is 20 foot. That's what needs to be shown. And the plan would indicate that the median setback is 24 foot, which is where the house is shown. But there are several planning commission members who would differ with me on that.
Okay, I don't have anything else right now.
Sorry.
Sure, look at,
It's A5.
A5, the property line has the existing long driveway that goes back to the garage.
That's correct.
Okay, so on lot 1 there, that driveway used to connect to blacktop in the back of lot 1.
That's correct, and some stone area.
Is it gonna still be like that?
There is a small portion of it being removed, just below the bottom side of the driveway, and all of the stone area is being removed and converted to grass.
What's the intent of how would you get to that black asphalt area on lot 1?
There is a proposed easement that allows access for lot 1 to use the driveway to access those 2 parking spaces, which are on,
Or gonna be, it's definitely gonna be an easement.
oh, there's going to be an easement, yeah. There would have to be an easement. I say proposed because the subdivision's not approved yet.
Part of the subdivision plan.
It's part of the subdivision plan.
And then with respect to the garage, that will be on the lot 2, so whoever owns lot 2 house will also own that garage?
That is correct.
Is that house up for sale, or who plans on living in that house?
Yeah, I believe it's an investment property,
It's an investment property.
yes.
So, is the intention on renting it?
Yes.
You'd rent the property and rent the garage separately?
Separately, yes, and that's the issue with the use.
You mentioned that there was gonna be some portion of the garage removed. Can you show me?
Yes, if you look on, it's probably hard to see on your exhibit, but there's a piece that sticks out about 6 foot. We have it labeled as portion of the existing garage to be removed and it's hatched, but it's a small outcrop of the building. Let's see if I can show it to you on the exhibit A. If you look at Exhibit A6, which is the aerial view, it's the portion that kind of looks like it has a black roof as compared to the other portions of the building which have a white roof.
Right. And then, the only intent is so that the variance you're requesting is to have multiple usage on the property, the rental property for a house and the rental property for commercial garage.
Yeah, we're asking to maintain the existing commercial use of the garage and the non-conforming situations because of the setbacks.
And the hardship that you believe is existing is what?
We believe that it's allowed to continue because it existed prior to the ordinances. So
What allows the house to be built?
it's allowed in the zoning district of the R6 to allow for a single-family home on that lot.
If it was a single use?
It's single use yes.
That's all I have.
Okay,
And I have one question.
sure, Bob.
If the garage was demolished, would you need to?
We would not.
That brings me to sort of the question I have, is what you're asking for relief from 182.13. No lot shall be formed from part of a lot already occupied by a building unless the existing building and any proposed building comply in all aspects with the new area and other requirements of the district in which the building is located. Now, this garage is not an accessory use. It's not it's a rental property used for business. So do you consider it a building or accessory structure?
I consider it accessory to the entire site.
We don't know, but it's non-conforming, so it's not an accessory. No one in either the house or the residential property is using the garage.
In the existing residence, they are not. That is correct.
So I don't consider it an accessory use to the structures that are there. Now, can the garage stay there? Yeah, it's a non-conforming use. I don't know where I'm trying to get at, how is it appropriate for us to overlook this requirement about, though that existing garage is not in compliance with the setbacks, and whether it's a building or a garage. That my hang up here. I can't get that straight. We need to talk.
I think that whether it's a garage or a building, it's still non-conforming in its existing condition, and it was non-conforming for a number of years, and by 180-801 and 180-802, it's permitted to be maintained.
And I agree with you. I just don't agree with you that because it existed, we didn't get an exemption from letting you subdivide it further and further complicate this parcel by subdividing it when we have a non-conforming use on the property. That's the issue there.
I understand your point.
I got one.
Sure.
On Exhibit A10, the last page of have it is a certificate of use occupancy for Janice Rolnick and William Sidney. And I can't read the date, October 29th,
1999,
1999.
which is when Janice and William purchased the property.
That's okay. And there's an asterisk there. It says property does not have approval for student rental.
Student rental, that's correct.
So that would apply to, if this goes through, both of these structures, that would apply to, is that correct?
That applies to the current certificate of occupancy, yes. That would carry forward.
That's all I have.
I had one other practical question. In the garage, what's the maximum height?
Inside or outside?
Outside.
Outside's about 14 feet. It varies in a couple different locations, but the front parapet's about 14 feet high at the highest point.
That's the highest point of
Yeah.
the whole garage side.
Yeah.
And Dennis, the other thing that I know you testified on, but I got lost, was the issue of the 2 parking spots. The 2 parking spots are going to require an easement on lot 1, but they're for use by who?
In order to, the 2 parking spots on lot 1 are for use by lot 1. And they're accessed through an easement on lot 2. So the occupants of lot 1 will park to the rear of the house in a space provided, and access will be through the existing driveway opening on the street to those 2 parking spaces through an easement.
Okay, so that's a standard shared driveway.
Standard shared driveway, yes.
Okay, now the question is, on the rental garage, and currently there's 2 businesses there, a landscaper and an electrician, and that can't be used at this time because they're not gonna have any parking now, or are they?
They park in the garage. It's a storage area. It's a place to rent, to park and store a vehicle.
You don't envision even limiting that to 1 rental use? You could still they're still planning on renting it to 2 different entities?
Well, there's a number of garage spaces there, and I think the intent is to maximize the use, as it has been in the past. There's been, if you notice in A10, some of the documents, there's been several businesses in those buildings at any given time.
And I agree with you there that it's a non-conforming use. Why would we want to approve intensifying the use of a property that's already non-conforming? That sort of makes it more non-conforming.
We're not looking to intensify the use.
Well, you're adding 2 more residential property on the same use, on that same property with the garage. So there's now going to be another use on that property after you subdivide it.
Which has its own access to.
But it's not big enough without the garage, right? It doesn't meet the bulk requirements if you didn't have the garage area included. So in other words, there's not a lot available if the garage was its own separate lot. Right?
That is correct, yes.
Anybody else have anything before we go to the?
What's the distance between the proposed house and the closest point on the garage?
It is, approximately 32 feet, which would be from the southern corner of the house to the northern corner of the garage.
32 feet?
Approximately, yes.
Dennis, do you have
Asked if the board had any questions for Mrs. Rolnick. She's available to at this time.
You would? Hey, we do have some questions. Your name and address to be sworn in?
I do.
And your name and address.
Janice Rolnick, P.O. Box 1063, Bryn Mawr, PA.
Mr. Rhodes, do you have questions?
I do. I wanted to go over a little bit on the garage. Currently, the townhome is rented to a tenant. Different tenant, commercial tenant uses the garage.
Yes.
Do you know how many people use the garage on a daily basis? Do you know how many cars park and leave, come and go?
The current tenant, it owns a medical kind of a company per se, and he parks cars and he has a truck. He is not in and out on a daily basis. I'm very careful to not have that happen. Years ago it was a mushroom business, and there were landscapers in there. There was plumbing. There were people taking showers. I mean, there is electric in there, but that's who it's rented to currently.
Is there working plumbing in the house now? Or in the garage?
Plumbing in there? No.
So there's no hose connections?
No.
Is it heated?
No.
So the only utility serving that building currently is electricity?
Correct.
And it's completely leased to one entity.
Yes.
And you're going to sell this lot?
No, I'm going to keep it as an investment, and I'm going to rent the house and continue to rent the garage if it's approved, and also the twin.
And does the current tenant of the garage are you considering leasing the townhome to the owner of the garage? Or to the tenant in the garage? Same tenant, both for the new single-family home and the garage, would that be the same entity?
Probably not, because the garage just depends. It is deep. You can park 7, 8, 9 vehicles, and it just depends on how big they are. And a person that owns a house or a townhouse, unless they had a business, would not be interested in leasing a garage that large.
So it's highly unlikely that there would be an owner-occupant of the house and the garage, or the same tenant of both.
There's always a possibility, but probably not. It's not I wouldn't do it. I mean, it would be very convenient, and there wouldn't be parking issues ever, or snow removal issues or anything else. But I try to be very cooperative with tenants, and it makes it easier for myself and for the neighborhood.
I don't think I have any other questions for Mr. Alden.
Anyone? Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Anything else, Dennis?
That's it.
Okay.
Dennis?
Yep.
Are you moving to admit exhibits A1 through A10 to the record?
Yes, I am.
Anyone that received certified mail that would like to testify? Yes, please come forward and state your name and address.
First thing. My name is John Brendan Cunningham, 827 Penn Street.
Okay, and we'll get swear you in.
Yes.
Okay, Mr. Brennan, what would you like to tell us?
I reside next to this property, and the only statement I have to say, I bought my house in 2016. I believe Janice Rolnick addressed this, but I had not seen landscaping or electrical trucks use that garage in the 2 years I had been there. I had seen like sports cars being parked in there. I didn't know the nature of the arguments that would be presented here. I did look up the code, but I do have a photo from my camera phone. It is geotagged. I don't have it printed. I can produce more information
We can't let it into the record unless we had a copy of it.
I'm not sure what relevance it has at this point anyway, but.
Okay.
Why don't you tell us what the picture shows and what relevance you think it has?
Well, at the time, the engineer, Dennis, had stated that it was leased to landscape, or rented out to landscapers and electricians. I found that in contradiction with my observations, but it seems Janice has corrected. The picture shows a Porsche sports car being towed by a pickup truck on a flatbed trailer along that driveway next to the semi-detached property on the existing lot. I had seen the car being loaded from the garage. I'm kind of a car fan, so it was interesting. But
So are you saying cars are being repaired in the garage? Or?
Stored, I believe. I haven't noticed repair activity.
But at no time did your testimony suggest that the garage was ever vacant and not used for any type of rental property?
I don't see people access the garage often.
Thank you. Okay.
Are you in favor or opposed to this application?
I am opposed.
Thank you. Anyone else that's received certified mail? Yes. And your name and address first? Yeah.
Margaret Dobbs, 837 Penn Street.
And then Arlene?
837. Good evening. Thank you for hearing us tonight. I am the owner of the twin that's adjacent to the other twin property that Ms. Rolnick owns, so I'm right here. So I have direct view of this garage from my property. We can see very clearly into the openings of the garages from our windows in the back of our house. So I do just have a few questions, and then I have a couple of comments to make. So in the original testimony by the engineer, he referenced that in the packet presented to you was a letter of review from the Delaware County Planning Commission, and I'm just wondering if you could summarize what the recommendation was from the county.
Okay, we'll take that, and after you're done, Planning Commission recommend.
So to start off, I would respectfully petition the zoning hearing board to deny the zoning application on the grounds that there is no severe hardship has been proven by the applicant. This is already an income-producing property. I don't see how adding a second non-affiliated income-producing property could benefit the community. I don't feel that this is a hardship. It is an active use in accordance with what Ms. Rolnick has said. I have not seen very much activity in this property. There was a for rent sign on the fence. There's a wrought iron fence in front of the property currently that had a for rent sign over the summer. I did not witness anybody moving in or out of the garage, so I couldn't testify as to whether or not it's currently occupied. But based on the testimony, it sounds like it is. But in terms of the use, it's not a nuisance use. There's not lots of loud noises. So in terms of continuing the pre-existing use of the garage, I have no objection to that. My objection is simply that we're adding now a second income-producing property for the property owner on the same lot, which poses some concerns. So primarily, in terms of zoning, in addition to the lack of hardship, the engineer testified that the maximum impervious surface would be below the 65% maximum. And then my question then also, and I don't believe this was asked yet, was that if the building coverage would exceed the maximum of 40% as is allowed in the zoning code. And that wasn't answered yet, and I don't know if that's something that we can answer right now.
They did not ask for that relief, so that would be not granted. So if building coverage was found to be that during the review, then they would have to come back.
Correct, right. So my concern, and not even getting into the saldo requirements, I don't know if there would be any waivers that would be requested as part of this land development, but could potentially, if the building coverage exceeded 40%, it could potentially come back for another variance. But besides that, let's see, setbacks, garage. I am also aware that there was a previous zoning hearing board decision rendered in 2000 for this property. The variance requested was a different one than is being requested tonight. But the overall effect was the same. Was the request in 2000 was to retain the garage as a rental commercial property and to build a new dwelling unit on this property, again, both for income producing. That application was denied at the time. I believe that the request at the time was to come in for either a twin or a duplex dwelling. So I do believe that the single-family home would meet zoning requirements if it were the only structure on the lot. But given that it's not the only structure on the lot, that's where we have this hearing tonight. Aside from zoning, just in terms of my feelings as a resident, being a neighboring property to this, the engineer referenced that this house would be modeled after a recently constructed house that was built, I don't know if it was earlier this year it was finished or late last year, but it does not fit the community of the character. I'm not happy to see that we're going to be adding another curb cut on our property. It reduces our on-street parking, which is usually at capacity in the evenings. This is a long stretch where we're allowed to have on-street parking, and we only have on-street parking on our side of the street. So across the street, there is no on-street parking. I'm not sure the dimensions, but it doesn't look as though you can fit a car now in between the existing driveway and the new proposed driveway, and then further south of the street between the new driveway and then the adjacent property's driveway. Typically, for most of the houses on our street, we do have a number of twins, which do have shared driveways. Most of those do have, I believe, some kind of shared access agreement, or they're double wide, so that property owners can drive up. But we do have driveways in between the twins, but most of them have detached rear garages. My property does not, but many of them do. So the fact that then we would be having a front-loading garage on a street that's predominantly either no garage or rear-loading detached garages, I find to be incongruous with the community character. I don't know what else the house will look like in terms of its elevation or its architectural features, but we do have a historic street, and I would like to keep it that way. So I'm just very concerned about what kind of impact this potential future residence in the configuration as proposed would have on our street. Additionally, things like front porches, a lot of people have open front porches. This is, again, something else that I really like about my street. I can sit on my front porch and watch the neighbors go by. One of our neighbors here has a really cute dog that I see her walking all the time. So I don't know if this is going to have a front porch, and again, how that driveway in the front yard facing the street like that, if that will have an impact. And then finally, I just want to talk about landscaping. Currently, the property doesn't really have much landscaping on it. There is some bushes that exist along the existing driveway. I believe that they're shown here on the plan, but that's it. There's no other trees on the property. There were a few trees that Ms. Rolnick removed shortly after we purchased the property in the rear of, kind of behind where the adjacent twin is to us. So these trees were removed shortly after we moved in, and that was in 2015. But otherwise, no landscaping exists on the property. It's just grass in the front. So my other question would be, what kind of landscaping would be proposed, seeing as how we have a very clear view of this commercial garage from our property, and then the neighbors behind us also have no kind of screening or buffering to screen them from this garage. And then I'm also not aware of what other landscaping could be proposed for the front of the house. My other concern with landscaping is street trees. I don't know where the utilities would be lining up for this property, but I would assume in this front yard area, which would mean that we wouldn't be allowed to have a street tree there. A number of the neighbors have been taking down their trees. It's very important to me from an ecological and an aesthetic perspective to retain the trees on our street. So I would hope that we would have street trees on this property, honestly, regardless of whether or not there's going to be a new house coming in. So that sums up my main concerns. I think we just want to have the recommendation from the county would be appreciated, and otherwise I thank you for hearing my concerns tonight.
Thank you. Dennis, would you like to summarize the Delco Planning Commission's report or letter?
Yes, I'm quoting from Exhibit A9. It's the second page, dated November 15, 2018. And about 2/3 of the way down the page, under recommendations, it says recommendations, approval, contingent upon addressing staff comments. Staff comments dealt with the waivers that we are requesting, which have nothing to do with the development of the site. It has to do with the width of the existing right-of-way and street, so that we don't have to widen the street in front of one lot, and to allow us to go to preliminary final subdivision land development in one process rather than two. And then there is a comment that we need to get sewage facilities planning modules, that the stormwater has to be verified for adequacy by the township engineer. And then it discusses how to record the plan if it's approved.
Thank you, Dennis. The other question that she rose was the issue of a 2000 zoning variance request, and that was denied. Do you dispute that, or do you have any knowledge of that?
I don't have a record of that with me.
We have no one here from the township to be able to ask that question, so.
We're going to ask, I don't know if you want to get through the rest of the public comment, but we're going to ask to continue the hearing so that we can probably present some additional testimony to your question regarding the adding the proposed home to the lot and how that is addressed in the ordinance section.
Okay. Anyone else that received certified mail that'd like to testify? Regular mail? Anybody certified mail? Anybody else? You had certified mail? Yeah.
My name's Stephen Sutton. I live at 836 Penn Street. I can't tell you whether I received certified or regular. I don't know if has to do with how close you live to the property.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, we're directly adjacent. We're across the street from the property, so.
Okay. 1 second. Do you mind if he goes first, or? Okay. Would you like to swear him in?
I do. B. I'd also like to request to be made a party to the proceeding.
Okay, 1 second.
How close do you live to the property?
My property is across the street from what's described on the plan as Lot 1.
What's your address?
836 Penn Street.
Across the street. You don't happen to have a copy of a deed?
Not on me.
I'll go off the record.
Sir, do you have,
I do have a driver's license that I can
does
share.
that state your address is 836?
Yes, it does.
Okay, can present that to the board?
Certainly.
Any objection from Ms. Rolnick or Dennis?
I'd like the opportunity to reserve my objection so that I can review his proximity to the.
Would you like to take a look at my driver's license?
You have his address right there. Okay, so you just want to verify
Okay,
that
so
the
you-
address is adjacent.
Any objection? Okay. Sure, noted. We'll allow,
Party status.
party status, allow Dennis to make his argument, should he have one.
Thank you. So, as I mentioned, my wife and I live directly across the street from the property that's described as lot number 1. I have concerns about a number of aspects of the plan. Initially, as the board well knows, there is a legal standard that has to be met for an applicant to demonstrate that a variance is warranted, and I don't feel that any of the factors that go into that consideration have been testified to, much less demonstrated. I haven't heard any testimony about any unnecessary hardship that prevents the reasonable use of the land in its current condition. In fact, the testimony that's been given today established that the property's been used as a commercial garage since, it seems, the 1940s. And I find it hard to understand how a property that's been used in that manner for so long is not capable of reasonable use. To the extent that there's even been a hardship demonstrated, I haven't heard any testimony to the effect that it affects the physical, that it's due to the unique physical condition of the land, nor again, as mentioned earlier, that it's necessary to enable the reasonable use of the land. Nor is it the minimum necessary relief, minimum necessary that's needed to afford relief to the property owner. I'm also concerned about the expansion of what's already a non-conforming use by creating 2 uses on a single property, where the zoning code, certainly contemplates only one single use should be permitted on any given lot. It's inconsistent with the nature of the surrounding neighborhood. There's no other properties on that street that contain both a commercial garage and a residential home. I'm concerned about the additional parking requirements, the parking, just additional cars and additional volume that comes from having 2 uses on a single property. I'm additionally concerned about one additional rental property on the street. Our street already has probably at least 8 or 9 rental properties on the street, and one more is just adding to that. Those are my stated concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody have questions for?
I just wonder, do you own or do you rent?
We own.
And you are against the requested variance?
That is correct. We're opposed to the requested relief.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Yes, please come forward.
I do. My name's Archibald William McMichael III. I currently live at 824 Penn Street. I own 824 Penn Street. I formerly owned 827 Penn Street and lived at 827 Penn Street. However, I no longer own it. I have a picture I'd like to enter, but I only have one copy of it. Is that acceptable?
It can be acceptable. We're just going to have to keep it and mark it as exhibit. Would you mark it as an exhibit, and you can enter it.
Sure. Michael's one?
And one sounds good, Arlene, thank you. Did you show it to the, I don't know your name, the party status?
And Dennis.
And Dennis, and thank you.
Notable aspects of that picture I'd like to mention. One is the for rent sign on the fence. The other is the condition of the property. That was after their soil test was done. There was no soil remediation or grass planted there afterwards. So I'm going to make a statement. I have several concerns about the plans submitted and several major concerns about the proposed project. 18 years ago, this project was denied. It was zoning number 00-14. The names on this plan are not the current owners of the properties. 18 years ago, Mr. Sidness was not committed as to whether or not the proposal was for a twin or an over and under duplex. The plan submitted, as I reviewed in the zoning hearing in the zoning office today, was also kind of vague in the detail of the dwelling. But it looks to be in the neighborhood of a 2,500 square foot house. Is it a single? Is it an over under duplex as described in 2000? Based on the fact that the names of the surrounding property owners are from 2000, I am left wondering if this is a rehash of the 2000 proposal. I reviewed that transcript recently. I am left with one question: why leave the garage? I can only conclude the answer is to continue renting it, or removing it represents a potential environmental cleanup. I was told by one of the neighbors in the past that there was a fuel pump on the property. I didn't see it with my own eyes, but I was told that it was there, and it is near the corner where the driveway makes the L right there.
You described that a little bit better because we're trying to do it on the.
Yep. It was at the end of the straight section on the eastern end of the existing driveway. I also see that the plan has a 10-foot easement for the existing public storm sewer on that plan. It is noted as a terracotta and must be quite old. That easement runs under the existing garage. How will this public storm sewer be modernized if it is under a building? What is the life expectancy of such a sewer? The existing dwelling, half-twin, on what's described as Lot 1, seems to have enough yard on the proposed plan to have its own driveway. Why not put in a driveway and do away with the proposed driveway easement on the north side of the proposed dwelling on Lot 2? Why leave the properties commingled? We have a non-conforming property being used as part commercial and part residential. Why would the board approve a variance that would be very likely to continue its non-conforming use? As a property owner, I am against allowing any variance that will ensure that this property will be non-conforming into the future. I would be in favor of allowing a subdivision that would allow a single-family house to be built and bring this property into conformance with the rest of the neighborhood. I am not in favor of leaving a butchered, non-conforming, multi-building rental compound. Also, in addition, in the past, the tenants of that garage have been a nuisance to the neighborhood. There were instances of race cars being driven around the neighborhood that were stored in the garage. There were instances of race cars being run late at night that were being stored in the garage. There also have been instances in the past of various different types of contractors loading and unloading trucks very early in the morning. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Any of the board members have questions?
Yes, you referenced zoning order 0014. Do you have a copy of that with you by any chance?
I don't have a printed copy of it with me. I have a electronic copy of it with me.
Okay, as you heard, Dennis is going to request a continuance at the conclusion of this hearing. So if you're going to be at the continued hearing, maybe you could bring a copy unless someone else has a copy.
Yes, sir, it's 120 pages.
That's the
Record of that.
transcript,
Yes.
not the order.
Okay.
Okay, that's all I have, Ed.
Yes, Ken.
The incidences, were there police reports or there your,
I don't have police reports, but I know police have been called for parties at the house that's on that property. There have not been police reports. As far as I know, there have not been police called because of the race cars or because of the contractors.
all right, but you witnessed them or?
Yes.
So, the incidents of police coming to the townhouse, the twin, you know if, who's currently residing there? Is it a family?
Currently,
Is it a
I don't know
students?
who's residing there right now. In the past, it was students, but they were law students, so they met some exemption to the student housing rule. There also have been, in the past, there's been 3 unrelated people living there, but one of their boyfriends was there most of the time, so there were more than 3 unrelated people in the house, in fact.
Okay. Thank you. Yes, anybody else that received regular mail?
And I don't remember the young lady's name.
Okay.
Margaret.
Yes, would you like to ask her a question?
I have a copy of the decision from the zoning hearing board from the 2000 case, just the decision, not the transcript.
Okay, would it be appropriate for her to be able to enter that as an exhibit at this point?
Mark?
Okay. Yes, if you can give it to Arlene so she can mark it as an exhibit.
How would you like it to be marked? How would you like it to be marked?
My last name is Dobbs, so D1.
Sure.
Sounds great.
Thank you, Carmen.
See that, Pete?
Okay, your name and address.
I'm Marjorie Brennan, 859 Penn Street. Can you just bring me?
Yeah, before you start, I think Dennis would like to take a look at that.
You want to say it, Vince?
Good evening.
One second, let him look at it, and I gotta get the other party to look at it, I'm sorry.
Okay.
What was the guy's party name? Mr. Sutton, have you seen that?
Have not.
Okay.
Handwritten notes. Judicial. You can do that. Read what you wrote.
Dennis, did you have any objections?
Is any party going to move for the admission of D1? Sutton.
I would like to move for admission of D1.
Can I have that?
Okay, so admitted.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
My discussion is going to be very different from every other one you've heard because it's very personal. Ms. Rolnick bought the property, 861 Penn, 20 feet from my front door, and it has been a contentious few months, many months. She bumped out the third floor, put in a bathroom, put a new roof on, put two air conditioning units. And I said, do you have any permits? And she said to me, I don't need any permits. I said, I think you do need permits. No. So the dumpster came in and it sat there for weeks. No one from codes came by. I called the township. She did need some permits. She was so angry on my front porch screaming at me, how dare I call the township on her. I said, they're the rules. Okay. We got past that. 4 months went by, the grass never got cut. It was this high. I called the township. Could someone cut this grass? Again on my front porch, screaming at me, how dare you call the township on me? I live here. Like Margaret said, I love my neighborhood. I've been on Penn Street for 42 years. I love the neighborhood. I love the people. I've never had a problem with a neighbor. But now I know for the rest of my life, I'm probably going to have a problem with someone right close to me. But that day, as she screamed at me and left my porch, warned me, you better be careful. I know people. Well, you know what? I don't know anybody, but I'm an upstanding citizen. I've been in this township for a long time, and I love it. And I'm not afraid. And I know I'm going to face retribution for this testimony, but I don't care. It's worth it. It's my home. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes.
1 second. Stay here. Dennis.
Marjorie Brennan, Brennan, 859 Penn Street. No, but it's right next to 861. And if Miss Rolnick flaunted the rules, excuse me. Okay, can I finish by saying?
1 second. Just wait till we rule on his objection, please.
Overruled.
Overruled.
I would just ask the township to please, if she gets a variance, keep an eye on it and make sure she follows the rules. That's all I'm asking. That's all I want. Thank you.
1 second. Anyone on the board would like to ask a question? Have any questions?
No.
Anyone else?
Nope. No.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else receive regular mail? Yes, please.
Hi, I'm Rhonda Carter. I live at 846 Penn Street. I live across the street, but closer up Lancaster than Steve said.
And you're, okay, and you just,
I would just like to add with my neighbors and voice my opposition to the, what these people are asking. We've bought our house. We live in the neighborhood for 5 years. We have 2 young children. I think that traffic on Penn Street is already a huge problem. Parking is a huge problem. Adding another structure and not taking away the garage that is at a variance, I think is not good for our neighborhood. And as mentioned before, losing the other parking spots in front of the house, I think is just adding to the already congested nature that we deal with. And also I have issues with the design of the house because we bought in the neighborhood because of the way that it looks and its feel.
thank you. Anyone have any questions?
None.
Thank you. Anyone else that received regular mail? Anyone else that would like to testify? Dennis, you had mentioned something earlier that you wanted to continue?
Yes, we will. Case be continued so that we can consider additional testimony.
1 second. Okay. The question is, on the date we can fit this in to be continued, whether we can do it at the next meeting, because we already have 3 cases. Excuse me?
You're talking about the 9th, Ed?
Yes.
How much time do you think you need, Dennis?
we don't have the meeting schedule approved for next year, so.
Move it to the 9th.
Okay, we can leave it on for the 9th. Anyone else? Okay, we're done with that. We'll continue this case to January 9th for additional testimony. And was there anything on the record that we're anticipating or receiving?
This is Exhibit A5.
Exhibit A5.
Presentation plan is A5. There's a copy of A5 in your book.
Can you take it off the board?
I can take it off the board and fold it.
Yeah.
I'd like to keep it with the exhibit, so it'll be here.
I have the original exhibit, so if you want to hand that up.
Dennis?
I have the sticker here on one of the copies.
All right.
Anyone made a party to this action tonight can obtain copies of these exhibits from the township.
Are we still on the record?
Yes, we're still on the record.
All right. Pete, would you send Dennis a copy of the
Exhibits.
prior zoning order?
Exhibit,
The prior zoning order, the resident exhibits that were handed up,
yes.
the photo and the zoning order. You want copies
you can
presumably,
take this
right?
one.
Oh, you're taking the original.
That's right. Okay.
You guys can scan them and email them to them. Do we have your business card, Dennis?
Thank you. Okay, we'll do.
Very good. We announced that we will continue this case till January 9th, the date of our reorganization meeting. And that being said, we're in anything else for the good of the order? Hearing nothing, then we will adjourn.